Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing Jane Eyre, and I am joined by Alex, who writes TTRPGs, streams TTRPGs, and also he is one of Candace's friends. And you know how much we love Candace, so of course, we had to have Alex on as well.
Hello, I'm very excited to be here, and as you all love Candace, I also love Candace. Candace is wonderful, and I'm very excited that we were able to make this connection.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why I had to preference that you are one of Candace's friends, but oh well, it's out there on the internet now.
I take that as a mark of honor to be included in that elite and illustrious group. So
Truly. So this is my first ever time reading Charlotte Bronte. Bronte? That's how you say it?
Bronte. Yep.
Okay, I thought so, but I said it like one too many times, and I was starting to like not be convinced that I was saying it correctly, honestly.
Like Montana. That's a word that just the other day I was thinking about and saying in my head, because I catalog antique maps and books for a living, and we just had a stack of Montana maps. And after a while, Montana is not a real word in my head. It's just like, am I saying that right? Am I thinking it right? I don't know.
To me, it's always Kansas, because it feels like something that's just in like Wizard of Oz, honestly. Don't know why.
I always had a problem with Arkansas versus Kansas, because I feel it should either be Arkansas and Kansas or Kansas and Arkansas. But
yeah, English is a fake language.
Truly just made up. There are no rules. It's all just whatever we want it to be. Or don't want it to be.
I feel like frat bros just got together at a bar and they were like, Arkansas, I like Kansas better, you know?
And then there was a drinking competition and no one won. And so that it was never settled. That's why we're stuck.
Yeah. It's like when you read medieval texts and people just like kind of spell things out phonetically, like shot in the dark, kind of just hoping that they're spelling something.
Right. We're just gonna, how do we spell it? I don't know, however we want. And you know what? Either you understand or you don't, and that's fine.
It's great. But let's go ahead and start with chapter 1.
There are only a couple things that I did when I was reading this. I was going for the color palette of the books that we read. So I underlined and took a note every time a color was mentioned, and I have totaled that up, and I'm ready to talk about it. And I've also totaled and talked about all of the times that Jane was compared to an animal or something that wasn't human, because I also found that interesting. Those are my only two major notes that I want to talk about. But
I'm obsessed with that. So I just have to know, I am used to reading Jane Austen, so
okay.
I thought we'd kind of go in like a similar kind of vein. No?
No, not at all, in fact.
I remember reading that like Charlotte Bronte, when Pride and Prejudice came out, like absolutely roasted Pride and Prejudice for some reason.
Not a fan. Yeah, no. Did not like it.
But now I get it, because like that's like kind of sappy fluff, and this is like grim and dark. But like honestly, just like read what's for you. You know what I mean?
100%. I mean, Charlotte Bronte really took the, hey, maybe you should write a book if you don't like Pride and Prejudice. She was like, oh yeah, fine, I will. And it's gonna be a personification of the Northern Moors, and it's gonna be miserable, and you're gonna be really sad as you read it. And everyone was like, great, do it, Charlotte.
Yeah, do it. I think if Little Women could have a polar opposite, this is the book.
That is. So I've never read Little Women. I've only seen a movie adaptation of it, but
Don't read it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
It has not. It's not an aged well.
It's one of those where if you had like the childhood nostalgia of reading it, you might enjoy it. But like, you know, like Percy Jackson, where it's like you can kind of read it at any age. This is not one of those. It honestly really talks down to you. So like if you don't have that nostalgia factor, like it just kind of feels like you're getting like life lessons. And then I'm just kind of like, slow your roll.
Excuse me, Louisa. Could we just not?
The funniest thing to me about Little Women is that she wrote like hardcore smut,
What?
and then like people just like really like her publisher's daughter really liked it, and then so she like released this like kind of as a joke originally, but like people loved it and don't know her for anything else.
Excuse? I had no idea about that. That's crazy. Good for you.
Yeah, I looked her up because the only thing I had heard about her was Little Women, and
Hmm.
I just wanted to like see what else she wrote. And yeah, it's like bodice ripping.
Huh. So one more aside from me, and then I'm good to talk
You're
about
totally
Jane Eyre.
fine.
So for my job as I work in an antique bookstore and catalog old books and maps, as I said. We get a lot of stuff that her father wrote because her dad wrote like religious instruction booklets that they publish like that like early textbooks. So it's like so we get a lot of his stuff in, and he like I haven't read them, but I get the impression that it's very much like a little Mr. Brocklehurst-esque, if you will. And so the fact that she's out there writing smut just that warms the cockles of my heart. I'm so happy for her.
I didn't know that. That's so funny.
Louisa May Alcott's dad was like a I don't know if he was a minister, but he was like one of these religious instruction Protestant evangelist types that was very famous in America. So
Wild. I think I saw that Charlotte Bronte's dad was also a clergyman,
yes.
which I think is interesting just because of how much she roasts
Oh my
religion.
god. Yeah, it's I think she's working through some stuff, which like great. That's why we write books is to work through childhood trauma. But yeah, there are few punches held in terms of when did this come out? 18 sorry, I have to consult my memory. It's like 1850s, 1840s, 1850s. So yeah, like the equivalent of an 1840s roast of really hypocritical jackasses in religion, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm imagining this as like her rebel phase.
Mm.
And I love it. Like, I really hope that this is like a theme that continues in all of her works. But I'm just imagining her going from like a 15-year-old like choir kid to like changing and becoming like religion sucks, you know?
Just like Charlotte Bronte goes into wearing all black, even though she was wearing all black before, but now she's got like, some bangs covering an eye, and she's like, Dad, I'm gonna roast you so hard.
I hope. That is my dream. Like, I don't know anything about her, but that's what I'm hoping for right now.
All of them had tragic, terrible lives. That's the issue. But the other sister, is it Emily who wrote Wuthering Heights? I think it's Emily who wrote Wuthering Heights. I feel like that's the actual rebel of the family because knowing how this goes, it's like, yeah, all right, I can see what's happening. But Emily Bronte is like, what if I made the worst man ever and we loved him? And everyone's like, oh no, don't do that.
Okay, so chapter one. I'm gonna read my notes like verbatim because I think it's a lot funnier that way.
This chapter is an experience as a first chapter. So absolutely, yeah, let's do it.
Keep in mind while we're going through these notes that I was comparing this to my standard of Jane Austen. The other thing is too that I so like have you ever read Rebecca by
I
Daphne du
have,
Maurier?
yes.
Okay, so like when I went into that book, I assumed that like Rebecca was gonna be our main character, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to assume that this time around because I've been fooled before.
That's wise. That's wise.
So I wasn't assuming that her name was Jade because like when I did Rebecca, I had to go scratch it all out, like, and go back and just write main character, and then I ended up like Googling it because I was like
Mm,
thinking I
nope.
lost something. Yeah. So
That's incredible. But it turns out you were okay because Jane Eyre is our main character, which is great.
So I should have just like let the assumptions happen, I guess.
But but we're gonna go on a journey with Jane from brooding little nerd to question mark. So
So right off rip, we have someone that does not like to go on long rock walks,
mm-mm.
and she's very happy it's raining, so she doesn't have to go on a secondary long walk. All I want to say to that is imagine that being your problem.
I would say it becomes a little clearer when it's like I have to go on a walk in the moors of northern England, which are haunted and foggy and cold as fuck. Like it's like what, November? They're just like making the kids. They're like, you know what you need? More walks in the cold. You need more exposure to the elements. Ugh.
I'm saying that's why there's like so many urban legends about the Moors. Like, I think that's where the Fae came from. I know they're Irish, but I think that's where the Fae come
Oh,
from.
100%.
It's because kids keep going in them and getting lost, you
Right.
know?
And the weak ones don't make it. That's how the Victorians did life. They're like, "All right, off you go. You're 8, go to the workhouse. Learn how to be industrious."
Charles Darwin is taking notes.
Right. It was like, indeed. Tougher children. Yes, good. That's what we need. But like as a bookish little nerd myself as a child, I totally relate. I totally relate.
Yeah, I wouldn't walk in the moors. Like, I live in Florida. The second it drops below 60, I'm not going outside. I'm not going outside.
Listen, as a child of the American plains of Minnesota where it gets very cold, I like a good walk in the cold, but I know for a fact that this Jane Eyre child, was not equipped for the cold. You got to know what to wear. I guarantee she was not layering. I guarantee that her clothes were old and not great and not protective because they don't care. They're like, cold is good for you. Let it seep into your
Like
bones.
leeches.
Yeah. We're going to bleed you out and we're going to freeze you to death and you're going to thank us for it later.
They're like, ah, yeah, the kids will be fine. You know, they're fine, whatever.
Right, and that's why, I mean, one, that's why you have so many. Like, okay, we sent 7 kids out on their second walk in the moors today. How many came back? 6? Okay. All right. Good enough.
That's enough. That's most of them.
Yeah, that's the majority. We're fine.
So we find out our main character feels like physically inferior, and she also has a nurse. So I said physically inferior, nurse, she must be dying. You know? Like, that's the pipeline.
Just point A, point B, yes, Jane Eyre.
I was like, I've heard this song before. You're dying. That's what it is.
Be a shorter book if that were the case.
Yeah, how many pages is this?
A lot.
Yeah, and good news, we end up finding out that our main character's name is Jane. And then my next note is Mrs. Reed does not like Jane much. What an understatement that was.
Yeah, it's palpable right off the bat. Just this poor child. And at the same time, like, what a bee. Come on.
This is an explicit podcast. You can totally say bitch.
Okay, like what a bitch, Mrs. Reed. Like, come on. Like, I get being annoyed by kids, but like people who legitimately hate kids, I'm like, what are you? It's like I understand, and we'll talk about it. I understand that the situation isn't ideal, but like, God, just like
So we get Jane in the room with her cousins, and then like Mrs. Reed just locks eyes with her and is like, ew. Like, go in the other room.
right, just like I'm sick of your face. Leave.
She's like, eh. Sorry, whenever I look at your face, it just makes me vomit. Like, I'm allergic to the sight of your face.
I want to know how much of that is autobiographical at the end of the day, because it feel like this immediately feels like we're working through some like someone did not like Charlotte Bronte as a child, and she fucking internalized that, and is like, I'm going to roast many people, and we're starting with Mrs. Reed.
Yeah, funny enough, I saw in the preface before I stopped reading that people like actually thought this was an autobiography.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's called an autobiography, and like that's the like the conceit of it is that she was like Currer Bell is the editor, the male editor of this like thing. So like, I mean, the style is very autobiographical, but like, yeah, I mean, I if you told me that this had actually happened, I'd be like, okay, maybe. Like,
CPS?
right. Is there an equivalent of CPS in Victorian England? I doubt it.
I don't know. Hope your
Maybe it's the
parents get
Lowood
consumption?
Academy. Oh my god. I mean, the chances of that are high. The chances of that are very high.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, your parent one of your parents is probably going to get consumption if you're a Victorian orphan. Literally. Yes. Oh my god. I'm seeing if I have sorry. Let's continue chronologically. I'm seeing if I have any notes.
So after getting shunned by Mrs. Reed, she decides to like go read in a window. And then like she's sitting there for like maybe 5 minutes before all of her cousins roll up. Oh wait, before that happens, we do get this whole moment of her like in her brain creating all of these scenarios to like scare the living daylights out of herself, and I was like, "Girl, are you okay?"
Jane is not okay.
This kid needs a lot of therapy. That's what we're learning here.
Oh my god, 100%. And unfortunately, they're not going to invent it for another 60 years. So she's basically out of luck. I'm sorry.
In a future chapter, would she just like trauma dumps on Helen? Like
Oh my
relatable.
god. Highly relatable. Yes.
We'll get there. That was so funny. But after she scares the living daylights out of herself for like memes, I guess, we get the introduction to her cousin John Reed, and like the way she writes him, she like basically compares him to like the scum on the bottom of her shoe. And I think like at one point she even compares him to like a pig or something.
Yeah, he is not described in the most glowing terms. I'll say that much. But it's what was really interesting to me, and maybe this is no. On the first page, she's literally talking about how she feels physically inferior to Eliza, John, and Georgiana, all of her cousins. And then, like, 3 pages later, she's like, this disgusting nerd, this bullying piece of shit comes in here with his flabby cheeks. I'm just like, wow, wow, okay. Strong.
Personally, I was like picturing Dudley Dursley.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's it's like 100% spoiled rich kid, privileged piece of shit vibes. Like I grew up with a dozen of these kids, and like I see their faces in that description. I'm like, oh, jerks.
I love the idea of our girl Charlotte Bronte just going through all of her bullies and like just writing them out word for word. Like I want to know who went through this book and like picked it up and was like, "Ooh, actually,
Actually,
yeah."
well, maybe they were some of the critics of the book who were like, "This book is shit," and maybe it's because I'm in it and I don't like it.
I want to know if she changed any names or not.
I mean,
Like there's only 4 names you can have, so I guess you don't really have to.
as a Victorian orphan or a Victorian noble, you have 4 names. That's right, and Reed is one of them. So
It's like John, Williams, Charles,
probably a probably a George, maybe.
yeah, maybe a George.
Yeah, just like, oh shit, I'm George. Maybe maybe all of the Johns in Victorian England read this and were like, I should reform myself. At least that's my high hope. That's my high hope.
They're like, I see myself in this and I don't like it.
Right? Just that's it. This is a life-changing moment for me.
Like when Charlotte Bronte came out and revealed herself as the author, how many people do you think were like, ooh,
Well, based on the 9 chapters that we read today at least 5 or 6. At least 5 or 6 human beings read that book and went, "Oh, if Charlotte's the author, this is not good for me."
In the middle of Jade like roasting John Reed, he's like, "Call me Master Reed," and she's like, "Ew, no."
No, not gonna do that.
And then she like compares herself to a slave, which she does a couple times, and I'm like, "Girl, what? Chill."
That's right. Jane has some issues of her own that she needs to work on, and maybe we'll get there. But she is fucking miserable in the most privileged way.
Oh, I know. She's like, "Life is hard. No one has ever had it harder than I have in this moment."
She says, sitting on her very cushy, like, windowsill in this mansion, reading her fucking illustrated books, which are super expensive. It's just like, I mean,
Like, I'm not saying she doesn't have it hard.
no, we all got our problems. She's suffering from like extreme child abuse. That's like, I mean, she's legitimately being abused. I'm not going to make light of that, but it's also like,
It's also just kind of funny, like the way she views her life, you
yeah,
know?
I mean, it's very. One thing I do like about this book a lot is that maybe it's just me and being like, I relate to Jane Eyre a lot, and I have ever since I read this book. And I also like privileged fuck growing up. So like I very much get that vibe of like, oh, my life is terrible while you're just like surrounded by all of this nice stuff. And like that so I think what Charlotte Bronte does really well in this is like gets that sort of she like Stephen King, I think she writes childhood well, at least in terms of like for me, I'm like, yes, this is a relatable childhood. And so I really like that about this book is that she seems to get into even though Jane is a very serious child, I think that there is still a childishness about these chapters that I really like. And that's what I'll say about that.
I do think it's also going to show a lot of growth for her because she is like actually writing herself as a child in the mindset of a child. Like I think a lot of people shy away from that and they always try to make themselves seem more serious when they're like kids when they write books.
Yep. Yep. And we are preparing for growth, which I love to see.
Me too. So before we talk anymore about Jane's privilege, we in the next scene we do see her get absolutely slapped across the face.
That's right. And hit with a book.
Yeah, hit with a book and then like thrown into a wall, and I think she busts her face open.
I think it's the book that busts her open because he like hucks a big heavy like leather book at her head. Uh and also just like among the notes that I have broken down the characters, and one of my columns is men who suck, and John Reed is the first one in that because he's the first male character or the first man boy that we meet, and awful, just a garbage human being.
I have a feeling that a continuous realm of this is just going to be that men suck, and honestly, I'm fine with that.
Yes. The list of men who suck is going to grow. It's going to get much larger, and the list of men who don't suck, of which I literally have just Mr. Lloyd, the apothecary doctor, he was fine. In the end, he was like, Jane is not. Anyway, we'll get to that. But he seemed a little more caring, a little more. Maybe we shouldn't abuse the small child in his conversations, which like I get that that's a very low bar, but when the bar is not having a giant book thrown at your head and being locked in a room, I don't know. Mr. Lloyd didn't seem that bad, but maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
I feel like the stakes are really low. Like the spectrum of terrible men to like, okay, I guess he didn't abuse her. It's like wild.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that is at the moment the best we have in terms of men, and that will be a theme. I guess as I will say because this is not a happy book, really. At the end of the day, not a happy book.
True. So we find out that Jane's dad left her there originally. Like, he dies later, but he just kind of left her there, and everyone is just like very pissed at Jane for it. Like, as if she had a choice.
Yes. Like, how dare your parents be dead, you dumb orphan? How dare you let that happen?
After that, she like decides to retaliate because obviously she just had a book thrown at her head. Like, what else is she to do except for retaliate? And then like the maid and the housekeeper, on Mrs. Reed's command, like drag her to the Red Room. And all I know about Red Room is it's very close to murder. And I was sus. I was very sus about this room.
That's right. Yeah. This room is creepy AF.
Like, first, why would you have an all red room? And then also, wasn't red dye like really hard to get in Victorian
I
England?
don't I don't know enough about dyes to comment on that, but I will say, like, having an entire room that is red is a choice, and it's not the choice I'd make. I'll say that much.
I would definitely consider it gaudy.
Hmm.
If I was at a hotel and I opened the door and the room, everything in it was red, I'd probably close the door and be like, please give me a different room.
Yes, I would like a different room if you don't mind. So when I read this, coming back to it, and one of the things that I sort of associated it with when I read it initially was the bathroom in The Shining. Like, if you remember that scene where they go
I
into
haven't seen The Shining.
oh, okay. There will be no spoilers then, but there is a very red bathroom and it's very creepy. And that's one of the associations I have with this room, uh that I think just enhances its weirdness to me as like this whole chapter 2 in the red room, very weird. Very, very weird for me.
Yeah, I just don't have that context, I guess. But I need to do The Shining. I need a guest to come on and want to do The Shining.
The Shining, literally my favorite book.
Do you want to do that next, maybe?
Yeah, yes, I do. I would very much like to do that.
So you're having a good time so far. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. As long as you want to bring me back. If at the end of this you're like, Alex is the worst and I never want to talk to him again, I understand, because rejection is a thing that is near and dear to my heart. But I'm having fun.
This is great. I'm having a great
Good.
time.
Excellent. But I do have lots of thoughts on the red room. Sorry.
So, chapter 2. Everyone's like shaming Jane as they drag her to this room, like telling her that she shouldn't have hit him in retaliation. And I'm like, you all need to stop. Y'all need to not right now.
No, the entire first part of this book is like, let's not listen to Jane Eyre. Like, that's just the theme. It's, oh, did Jane say something? Ignore it, because this child is weird and we don't like her. It's like, she's,
So I'm trying to put in my head, like, what she looks like to everyone else. And, like, just for, like, the pure black sheepness of it, like, have you seen the new Wednesday?
I have, yes.
I forget what her roommate's name is off like the top of my head.
Oh, the very vibrant one.
Yeah, like I'm
Yes.
imagining they all kind of look like her, and then there's like Jane over in the corner, and everyone else is just like, yeah, kind of weird, like a little weird.
That one scares us, and we don't like it. We don't like it at all.
Like just based off of her nightmares alone, she gives the vibe of like that toddler that like sneaks into your room at night, and it's like, what's up with that man behind you? And you turn around, there's no one there, and you're like, what's up with that kid?
That's a great point, because she literally does that in this with her ghost, but also it's like they describe her as uncanny a lot, or like there's something, quote, unnatural about her because she's so quiet and like stares at people, and it's like, we're getting it from her perspective, so we're like, why are you guys such jerks? But then it's like, yeah, imagine you're just a nice Victorian family, you're just sitting around enjoying your embroidery or your books, And then this little phantom child is just like pale, staring at you, and you're like, what do you want? And they don't speak. They don't say anything. They just like look at you. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to lock that child in a death room, but I'm also
But I'm scared.
right. I'm going to be a little bit like, oh, what does this child know? Because I feel like you're about to say, I know when you die. And it's like, no, I don't want to know that. So please don't say it.
I saw this lady on TikTok the other day talking about her like kid being like, "There's something under the bed, mom. Like, can you check?" And she's like, "Oh my god!" And then like, there was the same thing with like the TV. She's like, "Who's that man on the TV?" And she's like, "The TV's turned off. What are you talking about?" And it's just like, why are kids so freaking creepy? You know?
I hate everything about that. I don't like any of that. No.
This reminds me of the time when I was like 5 and I had like a really bad nightmare and I went into my parents' room and told them I saw like faces out of the wall. Like, what would you do? Like, if some kid came up to me and told me that and they're like, I can't sleep. I saw faces coming out of the wall. Like, now I can't sleep either. Like, what? That's literally terrifying. Kids are so scary.
No. No, I'd be like, well, I guess we're checking into a hotel for the evening because that's not okay. That's not okay. No, I don't want to do that.
So like chapter 2, that's where this whole spiral is coming from. Bessie and Miss Abbott are like, you're less than a maid to this family, all this shit. And then they like tie her to a chair and she's like begging them. She's like, I'll be good, I promise I'll be good.
Hold on. Wait.
I'm like, I'm sorry, wait, like what are you talking about right now? And then they like keep reminding her, they're like, wow, Jane, you are so poor. And they're like, if you don't start behaving, we're gonna give you a poor family to live with.
Oh my god. The yeah, the the amount of emotional abuse that these two servants are able to cram into like a page and a half is truly astonishing.
Yeah, it's truly astounding. But they're like, you're very poor. If you keep acting up, we're gonna send you to go live in the poorhouse. So like, be on better behavior. And like, honestly, Jade's not doing anything. Like, she's just like a normal kid, like a little creepy, but a normal kid.
Yup.
Like, I just think it's really funny that they're like, be on a better behavior, like talk or something maybe.
Right. Stop being a weirdo. Is it that hard? And Jane, on the point of being like tied to a chair, is like, yes, it's that hard, but I'll try.
Jane's like, I don't talk, like I felt like this is what you would want. And they're like, I don't know, could you be like slightly charismatic or something? I don't know.
Just that's a hard pass from Jane. She doesn't have it in her.
They're like, maybe stop saying that you're seeing ghosts haunting this house. Like, it's freaking everybody out.
I feel like this scene in many ways is the the Eric Andre meme where it's like Jane Eyre shooting someone, being like, you know, telling ghost stories and shooting Mrs. Reed's like, why would Mrs. Reed do this? It's like, well, Jane, maybe if you chilled out a little bit, just a little bit,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit, we might be okay.
Like, this woman literally lost her husband, and every so often, Jane's just like, I see your husband roaming the halls. like,
Bye-bye.
like, that has to be so traumatizing for this woman, because, like, she already lives in the house that her husband died in. Now she has this kid.
Yup.
And it sounds like I'm blaming the victim, and I don't mean to be doing that. It's just, it's kind of funny. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it as a thought exercise to get out of Jane's head, because, like, there is a lot going on in this house, and we only have the perspective of this little 10-year-old weirdo who's just creeping everybody out. So I also don't condone child abuse, but it is an interesting exercise to be like, why do they hate her so much?
Yeah, like, I'm just, like, trying to think if there's any reason, like, these people are just the absolute worst. You know what I mean? Like, these are the worst people to just have a creepy child in their midst.
Yeah, no, they are just not equipped for it. Not equipped at all.
So while Jane is also like questioning everything right now, we also find out that John kills animals. Like this kid is gonna grow up and be like a serial killer. Like what the hell?
Yeah, straight up. Straight up, John Reed is Jack the Ripper in like 30 years or whatever Jack the Ripper is. Like
Imagine
this
Charlotte Bronte met a serial killer and then like wrote about John Reed in her book.
oh my gosh. The implication of that is that not only did she meet a serial killer, but she like solved a serial killing. She's like, I know who did this. And rather than turn them into the authorities, I'm going to roast them in literature. I'm going to get them so hard.
Jack the Ripper reading Jane Eyre is like, oh my god.
Shit. Oh, she got
She
me good.
knows. John Reed the Ripper.
John Reed the Ripper. Canon established it. We solved it. We solved it. We're good.
I'm not looking up the dates here, okay?
No,
This is a fun fiction podcast, okay? I don't care if these people never met.
no. Facts only get in the way of a good story.
Truly. So we find out that Mr. Reed is dead, and he was her mother's brother. And he made Mrs. Reed promise to raise her like her own child, which I don't think is going, very well.
No.
And then we also have like Jade just sitting there getting like in her own head, like this own like psychosis moment where she's just like imagining like all this different stuff. And then she like bloody murder just starts screaming. Like she sees something move and then she's like, oh my god, it's Mr. Reed's ghost. He's gonna kill me. I'm gonna die. And then she's like screaming bloody murder. Everybody runs in. They're like, what happened? Are you hurt? Are you dying? Like why are you screaming?
Are you hurt? What did you do to yourself? It's just like, I saw a light.
Yeah, 100%. Their first assumption is that she did something to herself. So, like, what did she do in the past that made that their very first, like, go to?
I'm going to be generous and think that they just think she's weird, as usual. And so they're just like, Jane acting up again. Little attention monster. Just wants attention.
It's kind of weird seeing this from their point of view and be like, yeah, that kid would be kind of weird, you know? Still not an excuse, but.
Nope. Zero excuse for it, but.
They're like, did you do that on purpose? And she's like, I saw Mr. Reed's ghost. And they're like,
Which...
like, did you do it on purpose?
Right, so again, they're like, can you stop with the ghost? Can you stop with the Mr. Reed ghost?
Like Victorian child, in the moors all day, comes back cold and pale, complaining of seeing ghosts, and they're like, could you like not like maybe could you just not say ghost, not do that?
Right, just one day, Jane. Can we have one day where you're not seeing ghosts or prophesying doom? Please, that's all we ask.
It's like those coming of age movies where the dad's like, why don't you get into basketball? And you're like, I like theater, dad. Like, I like ghosts and trauma, dad.
Yeah, I like being cold and miserable. Leave me alone. No, wait, don't.
No, wait, don't.
Yeah,
but like, also
right,
maybe
leave
do.
me alone, but don't. I'll be here, you be there. Very, very cat-like. Which, this is a point I wanted to bring up because you had mentioned talking about how other people see Jane Eyre. She is called a mad cat not once but twice in the time that she spends at Gateshead. It's just like, yeah, there. I don't have a point about that. I'm just bringing it up that they're like, there is something very cat-like about her behavior, and they remark on it, which I appreciated.
Which honestly, I feel like we see actually. Like, she's very skittish. She's very jumpy. She's very reactionary. Like, I guess, if this is your childhood, I cannot blame her for being reactionary at all.
No.
Like, most people's reaction is to get, like, really quiet and shut down. And Jane's reaction is like, I'm gonna beat your ass, actually.
That's right. Claws come out. John Reed gets slapped. Hashtag John Reed deserved it. I'm not absolutely deserved it. But, yeah, she Yeah, there's something very cat-like about her in
Like if I saw this happening, I'd be like, do it again. My phone's out now. Wait. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Go again.
Hold on, go again.
Then at Jane's future wedding, I'd pull it out and be like, all right, wait. My favorite video of Jane right here.
Right, guys, watch what she's about to do. She's gonna slap this guy. She's gonna slap him so hard.
So we're on to chapter 3, and a stranger is just like carrying her unconscious body. Like this kid is passed out on the floor of the red room. And just like for a moment, just imagine as a stranger seeing the red room first off, and they're like, this is the most
Right.
luxurious room in the house. And we know she's like a pale thing. So like in my head, like the cinematography color change of like the contrast between this bright red room and this pale child passed out on the floor right now is why like it's so
Absolutely. Good. Yes. The and I think she passes out because she gets chilly. I think that's what happens. I think it's like an emotional, like she's obviously emotionally overcome, but it's also just like this part of the house is never heated, and so it's like she's out on the moors again, and it's just like, yeah, like I have this picture of this tiny vampire child like passed out in just like this blood red room, and yeah, you're the doctor who comes in and is like, what is going on here? Why do you have a vampire child? What is this?
But like, how long has she been in here? Has she not fed? Plus, she just like also does not eat on top of this. And like, you know, like people are. So like when I was a kid, I got this rumor that I was a vampire.
Okay.
So like you know that has to be her childhood rumor. Like people are going around asking like, does she age?
Right.
Have you seen her grow up at all?
That's right. She just appeared, and she's been this way the whole time we've known her. So
I think Mrs. Reed would fully embrace saying that Jane's a vampire if anybody ever asked her.
100%. 100%.
Her torch would be lit immediately.
Yeah. She's like, where's my steak? I'm ready to go.
So we find out that it's like Mr. Lloyd, who is the doctor, and he's kind of like, so, what happened? What happened here? He's like, did you just like pass out? Like, what happened? And Jane, all wide-eyed, is like, I saw a ghost in that wet room. And he's like, okay.
Meanwhile, this chapter directed by M. Night Shyamalan for everyone, because yeah, the I see dead people vibes very strong in this chapter.
Yeah, like TV flickering.
Yes.
So then she's like laying down, and Bessie and Missy are talking and like whispering to each other, thinking that she can't hear them. And they're like, she's gonna die within the night. They're like, we have to stay in the nursery. This kid's also been like rail thin the entire time they've known her. And like Bessie's like, I think tonight's the night. Like, do you think they have like a bet going on? Like, how long is this weird orphan kid going to last and survive here?
There's a Deadpool for Jane. Just like, I don't think she makes it to 12. I don't think it's gonna happen. 100%, because the servants are incredibly callous and terrible. Oh, I mean, Bessie's all right. Bessie's not the best. Right, but again, we're in that realm of like, okay, so you're not overtly emotionally or physically abusive. So that's like, that gets you to good person territory in this universe.
The best we have.
Right, sorry, Jane, this is the best we got. We got one lady who is gonna be really cruel to you, but cruel to be kind, I guess. As you know.
At least she kind of cares if you live. Like that's our standard now.
Right. She would prefer if you didn't die. That's her preferred outcome. Is that you make it, but like, you know, what more can we ask for than that, really?
Apparently that's all we got. But Bessie has to go down to help with dinner, and Mr. Lloyd's like, okay, can you, like, tell me what really happened? And Jade's like, they abused me, sir, and they locked me in that room, and then I saw a ghost. And he's like, okay. And also, I think he's doing cocaine the entire time he's talking to her. Fun fact.
Which entirely possible. Entirely possible.
Like, I think that's what's happening. Like, they make multiple notes about how he's reaching into his snuff box and taking a quick hit.
Ooh.
And I was like, I think this dude's coked out. I think that's what's happening here.
I think I interpreted it as nervousness because I don't think he knows like what the fuck he's supposed to do in this situation. And it's like, because he's an apothecary, he's not an actual doctor. So it's like he's more middle class, and the Reeds are wealthy, and like this vampire child that they keep is sick. And I think he probably knows like this child is not the favorite child, but here I am. So like I gotta do something and I don't really know what to do. So it's just like I read this scene as him just like nerved the fuck out. Like, if I do the wrong thing, things could go very badly for me. That's my reading of it. But I like the idea that the way he's medicating is with Victorian cocaine.
That's fair. He totally could have been fidgeting, but I just want to imagine as this dude is just like taking a quick line while like talking to this weird kid.
Just like, okay, yeah, tell me more about the ghost, vampire child. Okay, yeah, all right, let's talk about it.
You think there's rats in the wall scratching? I'm gonna need another one for this.
We'll get right on that. Yeah, right. Fuck this kid. This kid is too much.
Oh my god. So then he's like, alright, listen, kid. You do not have many options. He's like, either you go live with some distant relatives, and she's like, but my relatives are poor. I don't want to be poor.
That's not an option. Yes. It's like, Jane, would you choose poverty? And she's like, no.
She's like, at least here I can be sad in Louis Vuitton.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know if
Anytime I'm sad, I just get in my Bugatti.
I don't know if this is her finally figuring out that in fact she could be it could be worse, and she's just like coming to terms with it. But it is very much that like, I guess I'll buy myself another book because I'm feeling sad. Like vibe, just like this kid.
She's like, maybe I'll go get myself a pretty bow at the markets on Sunday.
Deep, right? Deep sigh that I shall be able to do this.
It's gonna be a black one though, because I only wear black.
That's right. There must be no colors.
So then he's like, your other option is you could just go to school. And she's like, I don't know, man. Like, only boys go to school. Like, John goes to school. He doesn't like it, but his standards are kind of shit. So I really probably shouldn't judge it by that. But like, I don't know. School, learning, I don't know.
Yes, I love that the fact that her shitty cousin hates school is the reason she's like, okay, maybe I do. Maybe school isn't awful, because if an awful person hates it, and like just the logic of it all is it's very funny, and like I appreciate the train. You can see the gears turning as she's thinking about it.
The enemy of my enemy.
Right. In this case, that enemy is school. Excellent.
She's like, you know what? I think I will get an education solely because John hates it.
Right. Just to fuck with him, I'm gonna do it.
After that, he's like, okay, I'll make a recommendation for you to be able to go to school. And then they also just compare Jade to being absolutely atrocious looking again for no reason.
Yes.
They're like, we'll send the ugly child to school.
Right. This little toad we will send off to school. It's just like, oh, there's so much self-internalized hatred in this book. It's a lot.
It's just like so funny though. Then she's just like, yeah, and then I took my frog-like feet.
Yeah. Yes. My pale phantom visage. Here we are again.
You know, like when your parents bring out the baby photos and you're like, ugh, why did I look like that?
Right, I'm just a little.
And then Charlotte just like takes the entire photo, puts it in her book, and goes, ugly, underlined.
Yeah. It's like, what did I hate about myself as a child that I can talk about at length? Oh, everything? Great. Yeah, let's do that.
She's like pulling out her childhood diary and she's like, all right, what did I hate about
Yep,
myself?
that's going in. That's going in.
She's like, my knobbly knees, my ugly nose. Throw it in the book. All that in the book. All right, what else did I hate? What else did I hate?
Putting it in. My cousins, everyone thinks my cousins are hot. Yeah, that's going in.
She's like, so I was living with supermodels.
Yes. Just like I, a pale waisted vampire, was living with these gorgeous yeah. Just
But that is all we have time to cover today. I like that we're stopping and we're like, all right, they just called Jane super ugly, and we're like, all right, that's all we've got today, folks.
yep. Just like this ugly kid. And see you next time.
And scene. Okay.
Yes.
But Alex, where can all the people of the internet find you and the things you're working on?
Oh, yeah. If the people of the internet want to find me, you can find me on Twitter, if it still exists whenever you're listening to this, at Mightiest Finn. That's mightiest, like the superlative, and Finn, Finn. You can also check out the Backwards Tabletop Games itch page. I've written two gothic horror TTRPG role playing games. That's really redundant. I've written two TTRPGs in the Southern Gothic and Gothic horror genre. So if you want to add a little flavor of that, you can check us out on our itch page. But that's really where I am. I'm not a big human of the internet, but I do lurk and post things like cute pictures of my dog and info about where I will be playing games and streaming them. So
I mean, simply, what more can you do on the internet than post photos of your pet, and tell people where you are at?
I mean, that's what it's for.
Truly.
I think that's what it's for. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, fine. Come check out what I'm doing. I play games and I write them, and I think they're cool and fun, and I hope you would think they are too. And then find me here for future episodes when we talk more about this poor Victorian vampire, Jane Eyre.
This poor orphan that is apparently really ugly.
This, this incredibly ugly, poor in the literal sense. She lives in poverty with no relatives, just having a time.
But we'll catch you all next week. Bye!